Hi everyone, Ellie Sax here, and today I'm answering your questions about the YDS 150. Let's go.
Ellie Sax. Go!
So today I'm going to be answering your questions about the YDS 150 and going through them all, explaining them and trying them out on the YDS. I've been getting lots of detailed questions through about MIDI control and about the functionality of this instrument, so I'm just going to go through the questions one by one and address each one so that you guys get the answers that you are looking for.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
So first up, Thomas says, I received my YDS 150 January 2021. Mine can input via Bluetooth, but it doesn't output Bluetooth. In this video by Ellie, she says that it can output MIDI via Bluetooth. Now, it can output MIDI via Bluetooth. You have to disconnect it from your YDS app. Go into your settings on your phone and connect it as a separate Bluetooth thing in existence. Then you can use it to control MIDI in GarageBand or different apps. You have to make sure that you have apps that you can control. So you can do it on an iPad with apps such as Synth One or in iPhone with apps such as GarageBand. I'm not sure about apps for Android phones and devices, but definitely worth checking out some synth apps. To connect it via Bluetooth, you have to press the FN button and hold it down while you press the E flat key with your right hand. That's question one. Can it output MIDI via Bluetooth? Yes, it can. Thomas also asked that he finds that after playing it for around 15 minutes, it stops playing. I hadn't discovered that problem. This is why. So you have to go into your YDS app. You open the app up itself, and then you do the usual Bluetooth, so the FN button, the E flat, and the up on the voice. If it's connected up as a device through the settings on your phone, it will not connect to the app. So make sure you forget the device as an option on your settings on your phone, and then go into the app, connect it up. I've connected mine up already. And then you just go to setting down here on the bottom, auto power off. See, I hadn't noticed it because mine was saved to 120 minutes. But I've been messing around in it, so you can do 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15. So I'm guessing that your auto power off is set to 15 minutes, which is why it's switching off partway through your practice. So just pop into there and save it in as 120 minutes. B Winters says, I would love to see how to for making the MIDI controller work. I happen to have Main Stage on my Mac. When I tried it at the store with their demo device, I couldn't get it to work, or is it only possible via Bluetooth? So I'm going to show you guys how I link it up to an iPad. It's exactly the same for a Mac. I use Logic on a Mac, so just open up a new channel, a software instrument, and it will control that. So you just plug into this section here, which is just a micro USB cable. And then I've got an adapter for my iPad so that I can plug a USB into my iPad, connect that up, and then here is Audio Kit Synth 1. Okay, so you have to turn the volume fully off on the instrument so that it doesn't play its sounds. Plug it in, turn the iPad up. I've plugged it into a speaker because this adapter means it can only go out of there for audio. How you can connect it up via MIDI. You can do exactly the same with a laptop, and then you just open it up in Logic or whatever software you use and create a software instrument. There we go. So B also asks, is there a way to record the YDS sound straight to a smartphone or laptop? There is not a way to record the sound directly to a laptop or a smartphone. You'd need to use an audio interface to record the sounds of the YDS into a laptop. You can use it to control a synth, so as a software instrument, but not to record the sounds of the YDS. Gary asked, how much MIDI capability does it have? So I've opened up MIDI Flow on my iPad for you guys so that I can show you exactly what it does and doesn't do. Pretty much, note on is your first initial breath into the instrument. Then when you stop blowing, it sends an off message. Air velocity is then mapped to CC11, and it does recognize different air velocities. So take a look. Recognising the air velocity and being able to map that is obviously a benefit over a keyboard synth, because you can't change the pressure on a keyboard synth once you put down the note, if it hasn't got aftertouch. The thumb wheel here is mapped to CC1, and then it's also sending something over CC74. I'm not quite sure what that is. It triggers it with high pressure of air, and I'm not quite sure how or why, but it just triggers CC74. That might be worth exploring. It might be to do with tonguing, but I haven't been able to figure it out. So that's fundamentally what messages it sends. So it can send over CC11 for air velocity, CC1 for the wheel on the back of the YDS, and CC74 for something unknown. They seem to be the only CC messages I can get off the system. You can't remap those control messages within the hardware, but you could in your software if you wanted to. Gary also asked, I assume the air pressure in the mouthpiece defaults to velocity, but can you set it for anything else such as breath or aftertouch? Not on the instrument. You can set it in a software such as Midi flow, but you can't set that on hardware. He says also, I believe there is a toggle near the right thumb position. There is. This toggle here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how you can change what that toggle controls in the YDS app. So if you're just using it for practice, you can only do that on your own personalized sounds, so on the U sounds. So if you do want to do it on a sax sound, I'd recommend setting up a sax sound in the U section. On the sax sounds, it's auto set to be a pitch bender. So I'm going to go into U01, which I have set as a tenor sax. I let it do all of its automatic things already, but if we go into the analog controller type, now that is this little wheel here, you can change it to pitch bend, modulation, which sounds like this. So pretty heavy vibrato, or you can set it to portamento, which means when you go between notes, it glisses between them. I'm assuming you could play with that to do different lengths of gliss, but I haven't played with it yet. But that's what you can set the little wheel to do within the app. Obviously, if you're using it for MIDI, you can map it yourself in your software. Gary also said, do you know what the choices for MIDI CC are? Yes, the choices are, it seems to output on CC1, 11 and 74, and I've already chatted about what they are mapped to. What about the range? Is it a standard sax range or is it extended up and down an octave? It is a standard sax range. So if you're in a tenor sax, it'll be in the pitch of a tenor sax. If you're in an alto, it'll be up a fifth because it'll be in the pitch of an alto, soprano, baritone, if that all makes sense. But basically a saxophone range. He also says when moisture builds up in the mouthpiece, does it end up dripping out of the bell? Yes, it does. A bit like if you have a soprano saxophone, it does end up coming out of the bell and it either drips on your trousers or on your dog if she's lying underneath you. Then Gary summed it up by saying, can it be a serious recording tool besides a great looking practice tool? And I'm not talking about recording onboard sound, so as a synth controller or MIDI controller. Fundamentally, there's not much MIDI control. You can only send it over 3 channels. It can definitely be used as a serious recording tool though if you map it to a synth, but probably not with onboard sounds because they're not really good enough for recording. But if you mapped it to a synth, yeah, it could definitely be used as a recording tool. Racecar says, how are the tenor sax sounds? Can you make it really sound like a jazzy tenor? My answer to that would be no, but let's see if you guys agree. I've set U01 as a tenor sax sound, so let's see what you think. I'd say no on that one. You don't have any lip control. You can't bend the pitch or give any effects with your lip. So I'd say jazz-wise, you can't add those inflections so it sounds very much straight. But it is a great tool for practicing in tricky fingerings. So if you're learning your jazz licks, it would be perfect for that. I wouldn't use it as a performance tool for a jazzy tenor sax, but each to their own. And then Luke says, no lip vibrato on a sax. Yamaha handicapped this thing big time. There is no lip vibrato, which is a bit of a shame. I didn't notice it to start with because I automatically put vibrato on and then it automatically puts vibrato on a sustained note like this. So I assumed I was doing it, but I wasn't. If you do want to add vibrato, you can map this little wheel to modulation. It will then add quite a nice sounding vibrato if you want to add it to sustained notes, but no, it doesn't have lip vibrato. I also got one more question from Johnny, and he says, what are you using the YDS for? So I'm using the YDS to practice with my headphones on so I don't annoy my neighbours because I live in an apartment. It's a really, really useful tool for that and for practicing new fingerings in. I'm also using it as a MIDI controller to play around with some new sounds in Logic and to lay down some stems for some new tracks. So it's really, really fun to play with when you plug it into Logic, and it's nice to be able to mess around with a track and create it from the ground up. So that's what I've been using the YDS for. I hope that answered all of your questions, guys. If you have any more questions about the YDS 150, pop it in the comments below and we'll film another video for you guys addressing your questions. We're also going to do a few more really fun videos on linking it up to the iPad and playing through a couple of different synths and with the onboard sounds and messing around with the sounds on there using the YDS app. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more little tips and tricks on the YDS, on the sax. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more tips and tricks on the YDS 150 and on the saxophone and lots of behind the scenes of Ellie Sax. Thank you so much for watching, guys. This is Ellie Sax signing out.